Hey guys, what's going on? We're back with a vault video. Crazy how the start of the season works. In this video, we're going to be going over my 3 characters. 2 of them are hard alts. I started kind of working on my Vengeance Demon Hunter, and I did this before the nerfs, and I started working on my Protection Warrior. So I'm going to quickly open the vaults for those guys, and then I'm really going to dig into my Brewmaster like I did last week, dissect my gearing options from my vault, as well as talk through kind of goals of the week and expectations, along with some other ranty stuff that happens to come up. So on my Vengeance Demon Hunter, I'm going to be opening this as Vengeance. I'm hoping for some decent loot. I think I did 4 dungeons last week, so nothing, I can't expect anything crazy. It looks like we did pull a Tree Mouse Festering Splinter. Now, I was only doing like +4s, so this is going to be on the hero track, but I would rather have this on the hero track than anything else, and we got a Haste Mastery neck, which I don't think would be useful in kind of late game, so we're going to actually go with the Tree Mouse Festering Splinter. Now, one thing I do want to note is that this week, from what I've seen on Twitter, and thanks Wowhead, there is a weekly dungeon quest for Dragonflight dungeons. You can do these on 0s, or you can do these on +2, +10, +15, whatever you happen to be running. So definitely pick up this quest. Make sure you're running your 4 mythic dungeons. Now, I have heard rumors that there is a current bug with the Bullions that if you complete this quest first before doing the raid, it won't give you your Bullion that you're supposed to get from the raid. So if you're a big Bullion collector and you're trying to maximize stuff, until the bug is fixed, or if it's a bug at all, go and do LFR first, get your Bullion or raid or whatever before turning in this Mythic Plus quest. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, let's jump over. I'm pretty happy with the vault. Let's jump over to the Warrior. On my Warrior last week, I think I only ended up doing 1 key, and I think I killed 1 LFR boss for my Bullion, so I don't get any loot for, well, we don't get anything for the raid finder or raid slot. So we're only going to have 1 spot, so pretty much it's going to be coins, or it's going to be item. Oh, I actually did. Never mind. I did get tier here. That's actually not bad. Oof, this is actually kind of a hard choice. So I have the option of tier. But the problem with tier is that, well, it's LFR tier, so I don't think I'd actually utilize this for a long period of time. Or I can take a 509 trinket, but I'm currently running Rage Heart that I bought with my first set of Bullions, and then I have my Cheat Death trinket. Most likely, I'm going to end up buying another trinket as well. So I think I'm actually going to pass on the Burgeoning Seed, and I think what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to take this chest plate. Haste Verse are good stats for it. While it is on the Raid Finder track, this will allow me to actually start putting together my next sets, which I believe I looted a Helm last week on the Champion track. And then outside of that, I'm going to have to continue farming loot. But I think for now the other option is that I have 3 Catalyst charges plus when I hit 2k IO, I would gain my 4 set. So realistically, I don't actually even have to take this. I could take coins now, which would feel a little bad. But by taking coins, it guarantees me a socket for an item that I loot from the vault in the future. So I think in this case, I might just go for the socket. Yes, I think I'm going to take socket. Only because I know the 2 items I just looted from my vault are farmable. And I expect to hopefully maybe in the future do them at a higher difficulty. Now, my Warrior is a slightly lower item level than a lot of my other characters right now. I'm only 480 in bags, 476 equipped. So it will take some time to gear this character up, but I don't think that it would take much time at all as long as I'm able to put in the time to farm Mythic Plus and get my Bullions and all that stuff. So we're going to make sure that we're going to be doing our 4 Mythic Plus on all of our tanks that we want to accomplish this week to make sure we're not missing out on those Bullions. And let's move on to the Brewmaster. Okay, so Brewmaster. I did a lot last week. I killed 6 Mythic bosses as well as countless keys. So I should have all 6 slots of PvE filled with Mythic track gear. So I'm going to be rolling Brewmaster. Mostly because there are some items that I would like to maybe see from my vault, especially in the Mythic Plus slot. As you remember last week, I may or may not have passed on a Mythic Track Granite scale. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. Let's open this up and see what we can get. What I'm looking for mostly, I don't even really know what I'm looking for because a lot of my gear I would consider is best in slot now. And I'm just right now currently going to try to upgrade it. outside of the few bullion items that I can get. So let's just open this up as brew and see what we can snag here. Yikes. This looks like a really bad vault. Okay, so looks like we rolled, well, I don't know if we rolled it, but we have basically loot from the Aberrus raid. I believe it's the Aberrus raid. Yes, ugly GH chest means it's Aberrus. Okay, so crit haste cloak on the mythic track. Probably not going to take, only because my current cloak has leech, which I can upgrade to at least 522, so I think I'm going to keep that. The bracers are not a bad choice. I'm currently running the cheat death bracers. But the problem with the cheat death bracers is I probably won't be crafting them as an upgrade this week, which means I have to wait another 2 weeks to craft, which means that I'm going to be rocking 46 bracers for a long time. So the main stat actually might not be bad on this piece, but I think there's better options here. We also then have the Warlord's Volcanic Chest, which I would catalyze into my tier chest on a mythic track, which actually would be super nice because currently I am rocking all mythic track tier except my chest. So it would pretty much solidify my mythic track items for the rest of the season in terms of tier. So I'd be actually pretty happy with this chest. We have a helm here that I would also be able to catalyze, but the helm I currently have has a socket and is maxed out. And while it is tier with haste mastery, I'm actually kind of liking my setup currently, only because the haste is a little bit nice in single target as well as some AoE parts when I'm spamming spinning crane kick on accident. We also have gloves, which I have as crit verse right now. Now, ideally, I would drop my current gloves and my current tier helm. I do have a Crown of Roiling Storms on a hero track, which would be better stats, crit verse. The gloves then I would be able to turn into gloves that I think are crit mastery, I believe, or I forgot which the tier gloves are, but the tier gloves are better than the tier helm. So I could do that on the mythic track. And then of course we have mythic track pants. So I have a couple of ideas here. This vault isn't as insane as last week. Last week I got lucky with trinkets and stuff. This week, obviously not so much. So I do want to keep in mind that I could take aspect tokens of merit. And what's unique about this season compared to last season is that it only costs 3 of these to buy a socket instead of 6. So I could essentially add 2 sockets to my gear. I have to keep in mind that I do get bullions this week and I can buy an item. Now, the item that I may or may not buy, haven't confirmed yet, is I would buy the Aranog ring from Vault of the Incarnates, which I can then put a socket on. I could also then use the other socket to put it on my Seal of Filial Duty. I could put it on my belt as well that I have crafted, or I could save it eventually for bracers. But my helm is socketed and my necklace. I think the biggest upgrade I could take temporarily would be these bracers. They're high crit, but they do have haste on them as well, which I don't necessarily need any more of. Or I could take the chest piece and I would turn this into tier and then I would upgrade that piece to 528, which would basically set me up for the rest of the patch. Main stat items are very important as well, so I'm leaning towards chest right now. The gloves would be nice to catalyze as well, but like I said, I'm actually pretty happy with my stats. While I do sit at 10% haste, I don't think I'm like not complaining about it. It does feel a little bit better in single target, and I've already hit diminishing returns on all of my other secondary stats. So for the time being, I think I'm going to grab the chest piece. I'm a little sad none of these have tertiary stats, if I'm being honest. That's okay. All right, I think we go chest then, guys. This is a very underwhelming vault. All right, so with the Mythic Track chest purchased, I want to do a few things. First, I want to get waking stats for it, and then I'm going to fly over to the Catalyst. So like I said before, we now have confirmed in-game for real, Zizio, that you can get bullions from the Mythic Plus weekly quest, which is really good. And I did a video a couple weeks ago talking about what I would buy with Dinar, and I've been having a few of you comment on that video since I've posted it about buying other things, like why I'm not recommending like damage trinkets and stuff like that. And it's because I was going under the assumption in that video that we were only going to be limited to raid bullions, and based off of what Blizzard had announced, where we're going to get like 1 a week for 12 weeks. Since obviously now that we can get it from Mythic Plus, it's probably worth talking about here some other items that I would recommend for brewmasters to pick up and the kind of nuance or caveats with that. So let me just transform this into my mythic piece. And we're good to go. Why does this piece actually like not horribly match? So in that video, there's a few things that I did recommend. First, I recommended the rare ring. Seal of Darun is chosen, as well as Seal of Filial Duty, which I am... Personally, I bought Seal already for the Broodkeeper ring, but I haven't bought the Aeronog ring yet, because the Aeronog ring is a smaller DPS upgrade. It's something that I would recommend buying like 4th or 5th, depending. Some other things that I recommended were actually things like Thorncaller's Claw from Amirdasil, as well as Firax's Tainted Rageheart. I did make some comments about DPS trinkets, but since we now know that we're going to at least get 3 more sets of 2 bullions, which is a weird way of saying that we're going to have 3 more purchases, we're going to have 6 more bullions in our reservoir. What I would recommend buying, if you haven't yet, is there's a couple of damage trinkets that I really, really like the idea of playing with. If you're looking for single target damage, let's say you're someone who raids or does pretty low keys that you're comfortable in, Manic Grief Torch does a ton of damage. It's probably one of your top single target trinkets. It's very rewarding when someone dies. When someone dies, the cooldown is reduced by 90 seconds. It's a 2-minute cooldown trinket. So as people die in your guild or in your run or in your pug, you can continuously do this and do more damage because of it, which is very good. Spiteful Storm is also not a bad single target increase if you're doing maybe mythic progression. It's passive. It's going to naturally do more damage. It's better for longer fights, things like Razageth, things like Firak. It's a pretty solid option. You also have trinkets like Storm Eater's Boon. Now, before I get flamed in the comment section, take this with a grain of salt. It's a nuanced trinket. It does root you in place for 10 seconds. As you know, as a tank player, sometimes being rooted for 10 seconds is almost like not feasible. Now you can pull it off. You can use Transcendence. So if you're smart with your movement, you can place a Transcendence, maybe move like 10 yards away, use the trinket. If anything dangerous is coming your way, like a big frontal or a swirl or some kind of one-shot ability, you can transcend out of the way to make sure that you're not dying during the boon window. You can't cancel it and you can't move, so you have to lock in for 10 seconds. It's kill or be killed, basically. This is a trinket, though, that's really fun to play with. In any encounter in raid as well that's more than 2 or 3 targets, this will pull out ahead of Grief Torch, according to logs and according to sims. So these are a couple of very strong trinkets to buy if you're looking for a little bit of damage. Now, if we step on over to Aberrus, you have a few options here. Let's say you're someone who doesn't really follow my direction, or you're just trying to gather as much information as possible. I have been a big advocate of a Forge Storm Thorncaller Claw pairing, but Dijarun Pillar of the Elder Flame is also a fine choice. It does a lot of single target damage. It's good in AoE. I personally find it clunky. I don't want to have to macro it into anything. I don't want to have another keybind. And being in a 2.5 minute cooldown, just not super great. I also am... It always makes me sad thinking about Dijarun came out when Weapons of Order used to scale all of your damage and not just your kit's damage. So Dijarun was insanely powerful when Weapons of Order worked like that, but no longer. So that's a good pickup. Elemental Pocket Anvil is actually pretty solid for single target as well if you like this style of trinket. Now, obviously, I would recommend something like Grief Torch or Spiteful Storm, but this is also a fine option as well. And Dragonfire Bomb Dispenser is pretty good in single target and is kind of... It's like multifaceted. It can be used in Mythic Plus. You can macro it into Keg Smash and it'll send out. You just need to be a little bit careful because it does have like a 6 to 8 second internal cooldown, which puts your other trinkets on cooldown as well. So you have to be a little careful if you're using an unused defensive trinket like Firax's Tainted Rageheart or Decoration of Flame. Outside of that, this is a really good time to start thinking about off specs. Let's say you also like to play Windwalker. I'm sure Call to Dominance is a pretty good trinket for that class still, I'd imagine. There's obviously some other good DPS trinkets. If you're playing a healer, maybe picking up something like Rashok's Molted Hearts or some other type of healer trinket. Now, if let's say you've been raiding and you've gotten really lucky with a lot of your loot, another good item to buy is the Arboreal Necklet from Volcaros in Amirdrasil. While the effect of this isn't super strong or useful, it is really good stats. And yeah, it does net you about 0.5% healing or something like that, depending on the key. So not a bad pickup if you don't feel like crafting something like Lariat or a Torque of Past Time in the near future. Anyways, those are kind of the items I would recommend outside of the list that I made a couple weeks ago. Make sure you're doing raid before you're turning in your quest, or at least until the bug is fixed. Hopefully they fix it soon, or they at least recuperate or reimburse people for the item they might not be receiving, because that would kind of suck if you're going to be 1 bullion behind going forward. Good luck in your vaults, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it kind of covered some stuff. Unfortunate vaults for myself, but that's okay. I will be streaming probably most of this week, doing keys, playing around with trinkets, and just talking about Brewmaster in general, so feel free to stop on by. And lastly, massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do content like this. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.